Start Your Dungeons is now sponsored by Level Up Games, the largest and best board game, role playing, miniature games, collectible card game, hobby, and nerd store in Georgia. With a wide variety of events and product lines, Level Up Games is sure to have the product for every gamer you know. With three convenient locations in Duluth, Johns Creek, and Athens, there's bound to be a store near you. Plus, they ship anywhere in the U.S. from their online shop at levelupgamesatl.com. Thanks for sponsoring the channel, Level Up Games, and check out their event calendar and online store at the link in the description.
Hello everyone, welcome to Start Your Dungeons. I'm Adam.
I'm Bryce.
And today we're talking about the new Warhammer Underworlds Embergard box set. So this is like the revamped new edition of the game.
Yep. For anyone who knows, who follows us, we've obviously reviewed Underworlds. You know I am a fan. It's my competitive game of choice. This is a new edition. So this is a whole new edition. There's been changes. There's no longer going to be season boxes. This is a core box, and from their way of talking about it, this is evergreen. You can buy this to get into the game at any point. There's no more trying to figure out, well, this season valid, the rule book's valid. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be, if you want to get into Underworlds, this set for $100 gets you in.
And it's a good set.
Yeah, it really, really is. I've been very impressed. We're going to talk about it, obviously, but I'm very impressed with it.
So what comes in the box?
A lot of different things. So for anyone who's played Underworlds before, there are a lot of changes that happened. I won't go into all of them necessarily, but some of the big ones are, you can see there's only one board. There's no longer, every player brings the two boards.
No more of the two boards.
Yeah, it's one board that is just multi-layered. It's smaller than two boards. I actually like its size. I don't know if it's, I think it's a little bit different, but it's almost Warcry size a little bit kind of thing, which I like.
And this you can just play on a coffee table.
Yeah,
and that's been kind of the selling point of Underworlds, is that this is a coffee table game.
And I think in the old edition it wasn't always, because sometimes with the boards when you were staggering them and stuff, it wasn't actually a coffee table. This feels more coffee table-esque. You get your rule book. The rule book is now down from 60 something or more pages to only 30. Very much of a more simplified game. You get these, GW, where were these? Where were these the entire time you've been making this freaking game? Cards, quick reference cards. Two warbands. We've got the Ember Watch, which are the new sort of Stormcast that are like kind of like assassin rangers sort of style.
Yeah.
And then we've got Zickett's Tunnel Pack, which is like mining excavator sort of Skaven, and I love them. And then we've got their cards, their War Scrolls, which is a new thing now. No longer do warbands have their own decks. They have these now instead, which are simpler, easier to understand rules and once per game sort of abilities.
Think kind of like your War Cry.
Right.
Or if you ever got the Bladeborn, Barnes & Noble exclusive, kind of smaller hex-based game, which was kind of like in the middle between Underworlds and Warcry. Very similar to the cards that you get for those games.
Yep. And then you've got your dice. You'll notice, for anyone who's been playing for a long time, no more magic dice. So it's just attack dice and defense dice. Most magic attacks have basically just become good range attacks. And then 4 Universal Rivals decks. So when I said we have no more warband decks, well, how do we play? You just pick a warband, and then you pick a deck, and you go. That's how Rivals works. Nemesis is mixing 2 of them. Comes with 4 different decks in here. We've got Blazing Assault, which is your more aggro deck. Emberstone Sentinels, that's more your hold objective deck. Pillage and Plunder, which is all about flipping objective tokens, and it's like a, I think they call them a flex deck. There's Flex and Mastery, and I think that's the flex deck. And then Mastery can be anything, and that's the Countdown deck. And the Countdown deck is all about building up your Cataclysm tracker to certain points to where it gives you better bonuses the higher up it goes. And killing dudes and keeping people off objectives is how you raise it. So you get all of that and tokens. I don't have the tokens out because, frankly, I've owned enough tokens for this game, and I own acrylic ones now, so I don't really need those tokens. But you get all that in this box set for $100.
That's a pretty good value. I mean, I know, like, $100 is a lot, but it's also, this is your set.
It's evergreen now. It's
Yeah.
not 85, $90 to buy like Winter Maw or Death
Yeah.
Gorge. Come with
It's
two.
not based in seasons.
Yeah, it's not. It's this will last you, at least from our understanding, forever. And that's what they kind of, I think, want to do with this new edition, is make it easier to get into. Because when I was trying to teach players to get in with the old Underworlds, they were like, "Well, I own Dire Chasm at home from years ago. Can I just use that?" And it's like, not 100%. Like some of that doesn't work. Some of it. This just makes it streamlined and easier for you to get into the game. And they've also done a really good job when we talk about expansions of making it to where what's in a shop is what you can play with, and not struggling to find old stuff anymore.
That's good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the quality of the materials just overall, especially the miniatures, because I want to say this about Games Workshop miniatures, like the ones that come in the colored plastic. To me, when I assemble these, it does not feel the same. Like in the past, they have not felt the same as the gray plastics that you get with normal GW miniatures. What do you think about these? Are these pretty good quality?
I think, as with every one I've ever put together, Stormcast warbands are not always super easy to put together in terms of like this one, especially Faraza, her chest plate right here is a single piece that big with a long pole that goes all the way to the back. Don't know why. Didn't need to happen. Shoulder pads, always a kind of issue thing. A little bit of a line. You can trim down pegs, obviously, and get a lot of that down. I'll say this, though. I felt like they were more complicated than these. And these had more on them going. But the Skaven felt really well designed in how they kind of clicked together. I think, again, Underworlds has always impressed me with them being push fit, right? Like they are push fit, they fit pretty well. The only thing I'm going to complain about, and I'm going to say this every time, GW, why in God's green earth is that little leg the thing that I push in and it will just snap? Stop it. Like, literally make it to where the leg is in the base or something that's easier. I'm tired of almost snapping them because I'm fat-fingered and I'm going to break stuff.
Realize how many of us gamers have fat fingers?
Right, exactly. Like,
not me, but...
dude, it's ridiculous.
Like child hands. Okay, so... let's see, required tools for assembly. Anything other than just your basic clippers? Did you need anything specialized?
I felt like connection points on these were really good. They were easy to clean up. I don't really use files. I have them, but I don't use them a whole lot. And even without like just the files and everything like that, I feel like they were, when I snipped them off, I was like not having to clean a bunch of stuff. Not a lot of bad mold lines on this stuff either. I don't know. They're getting better about their mold lines being hidden on things, or just not being as accessible when you look at stuff.
So we've got the cheat sheets. And we've got these cards. How easy is it to follow the things on the cards now? Because that was... I mean, I like Underworlds, but one of my problems is because there's too many things on the card. And, like, in the past, you've had these big pieces of text that was hard for me to follow. What do you think about this edition and following the information on the cards?
I think the cards are a lot easier. So for anyone who's been an old-time Underworlds player, a lot of these cards are like Season 1 cards or Season 2 cards, because they now, with a total revamp of the system, can bring back cards that were kind of a little bit overpowered or maybe broken because of how many cards were released in the pool. On the back of the sheet is how to do the game sequence, combat sequence, all the core abilities you can do. I mean, I feel like they've done a really good job of trying to make this very simple to follow. And for cards are so much easier. Like, there's been a few cards in here where I'm like, well, do I still get this or whatnot? And they've done some FAQs already, which is nice. But I think the text has become so much more simple, and the game has become, in a lot of ways, more streamlined and cleaned up, that it's not as difficult to play, because things aren't like, this gives cleave and does all these things. It's like, this gives cleave. This gives you +1 dice. This gives you this. It's not a bunch of text on a card. And like you said, I mean, we just played a game and you were like, wow, these cards don't feel like they're covered in stuff.
Most of them now just have one sentence.
And I think that's the same thing about fighter cards. Fighter cards used to have all this stuff on them. They only have your base stats and your melee and your attack and your little runes and then, your inspired side. But everything is very much like anything that's like for your warband or very special abilities, that's all on your war scroll now.
I felt like I didn't have to remember as many things,
No.
which helps me because that's one of the things. Like, and I've talked about it on the show before. I have a hard time trying to keep everything active in my memory while I'm playing a game. So if there's too many things to remember, I get bogged down. This was better.
You did a lot better in this.
I got really close to winning.
Yeah, which 14-13. I mean,
which was weird for me.
Yeah, like normally in our games, it's pretty much a blowout. Like,
I mean, he's a top tier player, so I'm not. I'm used to it. But I felt like I didn't have. I wasn't like frustrated.
Which you were before.
Oh yeah, and and that's a thing that happens with some games that just require a lot of things for you to remember.
And even though there are a lot of things, you got to remember your surges and stuff like that. I do feel like you caught on pretty quick, like what you had and did, and like I feel like this game is a lot easier to teach. Whereas before, I don't think it was as easy to kind of get someone in. I've taught. In total today, I taught you and I taught 2 other people how to play this game, and 2 of them had Underworld experience and 1 didn't, and each one of them was like, oh, I don't need your help anymore, like I can get through, I can do my turn. And I was like, that's impressive, whereas before in the old game I did not have that capacity with all the stuff that was going on.
So what about keywords? Is like the previous editions had lots of keywords to remember. What about this edition?
I feel like there's some. I mean, you still have cleave and snare and grievous. There's a lot more symbols now to help make things easier, especially on cards where it's like, oh, if you roll a crit, you get cleave, or if you roll a crit, you get grievous. I feel like keywords have gone down, and I think they've done a really good job of using more symbols, but universal symbols that every warband will have. Like a minion, the minion symbol is the same on every minion across every warband. So now it's like, oh, I see that symbol, I know, oh, that's my leader because they have the crown on them. Like, and what's nice is a lot of the cards will also have like, pick your leader, insert the symbol that your leader will have on his card, so you can go, oh, this is the symbol for a leader. That's my leader. I can do. I just really like the ease they've made it of where, like, even if you don't understand the language necessarily, you can kind of pick up pretty easily still on it.
So, how long does it take to play the game?
It's Underworlds, baby. It's 20, 25 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, we played and we still went pretty quick, even me teaching you. And I mean, I can play a game of Underworlds in probably 20, 25 minutes. And, it's a best of 3 game at, like, events and stuff. So, like, you end up pretty fast. I think a lot of the removal, too, of, like, the complexity of the cards has helped speed up the game a little bit as well. But also, like, I want to say this. The game is not boring. And there's a lot of people who have been really upset about these changes, and they feel like the game has lost identity. I will reserve my statement. I'll reserve my really rude statement about that, because I feel like
I mean, just from this, I don't see that. I mean, they altered some things, but it still feels like Underworlds.
I think they feel like there's some loss of identity, some changes by not having warbands, but I feel like this isn't. If I have a war scroll that's broken, I can just, as GW, put a new one online and reprint. You print out a new one, and I didn't have to print a whole new deck, right? I didn't have to fix a bunch. To me,
that sounds great.
Yeah, it feels like it's a lot more easier to balance. And I know that people are upset about it. And again, crap in your hands and clap for all I care. Like, I'm sorry. I was that person, and I'll admit it. I was very upset that there was a new edition. I've played it a bunch. I love it. If you like the old game, that's great, but don't ruin it for new players. And I've seen a lot of that, and I think this game has legs. They've seen more people talking about this game in our local Discord for Level Up than I've ever seen. Yeah. And that's awesome. And they're not old players, they're new players.
So is this a complete game? Could you take this to a tournament?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, this is pretty much all they have right now for decks, except there's 2 new ones that came out, Reckless Fury and Rack and Ruin. But there's only 6 decks out right now. So, I will say this is a huge thing, and some people are upset about this, and I get this. Underworlds no longer allows you to play in competitive events with every warband. So 33 warbands were chosen to be the competitive warbands for this season.
Yeah.
So you can't play all your old ones. But the old ones have free rules. They don't have their own individual war scrolls.
Right.
They have 2 war scrolls per Grand Alliance, and then you pick which one you want to play. I think that's really cool. I know some people are upset about it. I think it's really cool that you can play a warband and play two drastically different ways with them.
Yeah.
But what's also really nice is, so these guys are in this now, but next season, there's nothing changing them for going, hey, we're going to leave them in. But here's a new war scroll with all new abilities. Like, there's a really, really cool design here and freedom of change that is allowed that was impossible in the old edition.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but this is everything you need. You can play this game. You need this, though. That's what I'll say. You cannot play the new Underworlds without this.
Yeah.
You can't bring your old decks. You can't bring your old cards. You can't bring your old boards. You do need this.
Yeah.
But, again, it's evergreen.
And I do want to, just ask about, like, so, there are expansions to the game. Like, what are the new changes to how this game expands?
So they are doing the similar things with so the way they basically chose those 33 is it's these two, the 16 or so war bands that were released in the last year and a half, because they're easily available and still able to pick up, and those are free to download online and print.
You grab those in stores.
And then there's
like Level Up Games.
Yeah, like Level Up Games. If they still have them, they sold a bunch of them because I sold them to people.
Sure.
They were also did a clearance sale, so it kind of helped with some of that. There's also Grand Alliance boxes that are official. They come with 4 from every of those. Some of them are really good, guys. Those come with the warband sprues and the cars. And I'll say this, I love that because my biggest problem with the old game was you could sometimes find the models but not the cards, and because a lot of people didn't play Underworlds. They just wanted to buy the models, put them in their AOS army, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But, $150, $200 for a single freaking warband is ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're reprinting a lot of these. And because you don't need decks with them, you just need war scrolls and cards. Those come in there.
Grab the models. You got your rivals decks.
So it's super easy to get back into. There's also, like I said, they just released 2 new decks. Reckless Fury, which is all about charging, and Rack and Ruin, which is kind of like a weird, funky sort of like deck. And there's 2 new warbands as well. There's the Jaws of Ixal, which are the giant, like, Seraphon, like, Croxagori kind of. They're not actually Croxagori. I always forget what the big Saurus Warriors kind of style. And then the Gardeners of Nurgle one, which is all, like, Plague Bearers that are, like, magic.
Those
and stuff.
models look good.
They're really cool. But what they're trying to do is basically say, if you're interested in playing Underworlds, it's a lot easier to get into because if you're like, I want to play this Order warband, well, it's $100. You get 4 warbands. You get all the cards for it. But it's also all they're selling in stores, so you aren't screwed going, well, if I buy this, am I not going to be able to play it? Only thing sold in stores is the models that are official. I will say this, though. I do have a complaint. GW, if you're going to make a card pack for this season, you better sell it more than within an hour, and you better sell it all the time. It's ridiculous. Because they sold that thing, and if you own the models, you could buy just a pack that had all 16 warbands that were across all those Grand Alliance boxes. 30 minutes.
Wow.
Not even selling it again, right? Because they do that temporary stuff, and it drives me nuts. And I get it, but it's a card pack, dude, and you're trying to get people back into this game. Sell it.
So who is this for? Is this for new players? Is this for seasoned players only? Do you think it's everybody?
I think this edition of Underworlds is the best it's ever been for a new player. I also think, like I was showing my buddy David today about it. His wife Candace is a board gamer, not really a miniature gamer. He was like, I think I could teach Candace this.
Cool.
Like, I think that's really great. I think it is great for new players. I think it's so much easier to understand. It's so much easier to get into. If you're a seasoned Underworlds player, I beg of you, please try this. Because I was you. I was upset. I hated where competitive Underworlds was at the end of season 1. I think it was broken and very unbalanced, and I was worried this wasn't going to be good. I love this new edition. I will champion this new edition because I think it is so easy to get into and so much better at getting more people to play the game that I love, which I couldn't always do in the old edition. The old edition wasn't for new gamers, I think. This is for new gamers, and that's a huge deal with a new edition.
So it's safe to say you're going to keep playing?
You're going to see me at Worlds hopefully next year. So,
Very good.
I mean, I'd love to keep playing this game. I mean, I love it. I mean, look at you. I mean, we played, and I could feel like you were like, I'm down to play this more.
Yeah.
Like, which is not... I feel like sometimes we would play games, and you go, yeah, we can play Underworlds, man, but really it's just for you to test your deck.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, and a lot of times it was for him to prepare to go to a tournament.
yeah.
And I would just get the absolute crap knocked out of me.
Yeah, it was not always.
But I knew that I was helping out my my friend trying to also beat the crap out of people.
So yeah, I mean that's fair.
This actually had fun playing.
Yeah. And you even said after you do this, like you're thinking about buying this actually, which is huge.
Well,
I think
I do want to buy this. I mean, not just for the models to paint, but also I think this is a game that I could take down to the store and play.
I think you could also eventually probably teach like Penny this. I think Penny could get this after some point.
I think I don't know. I don't know about the kids because this may because my daughter's 10, and I think that may stretch things. But if she,
I think if you didn't have decks and you just did kills and like hold an objective, score a point or something like that, you might be able to. But I feel like it's stripped down enough to where because there's less reading, it almost is in some ways easier to kind of understand. But that's totally
she will play miniature games with me sometimes. But I think this maybe in a couple years.
Yeah,
but
I think this is better though.
Yeah. The other the previous edition.
No, God, no. I would not try to teach. I had trouble teaching that game, and they even made a freaking rule book that said here's every single move you should do for that starter set. Remember with the Spolkar? And I still had trouble teaching people that game. Wow. So like this, though, like I said, I've taught 3 people today, and every single one of them went, "Man, I really want to buy this and play this." Yeah. Which is impressive, I think. And I'll say this too. I think I like about the new edition, and you can tell me if you agree with this or not. It feels more card gamey than the old one used to. It feels also a little bit more board gamey. And it's always been the tagline that this was the ultimate competitive board game.
Yeah. I mean, this is not your typical like Age of Sigmar or 40K.
Yeah.
It's not even like a skirmish game, like a skirmish war game. It's not Warcry. I know that, we were saying earlier, it's got some elements of things like Warcry and, some other skirmish games, but it's not those things. This is a board game.
Yeah.
And if you go into it as a board game, plus a card element, then I think you have reasonable expectations of what the game is.
Yeah, I think it fits a space that the GW doesn't have anywhere else, too. If you like deck building, because deck building is a thing. We talked about Rivals, just picking one of these. Nemesis is mixing 2 of them together to build out a deck, just like the old edition was. There's no champs in this, so there is no way to build full-on decks. I don't know if that'll change or not, but I kind of like right now that Nemesis is just the focus and stuff. But I don't know, man. I'm really excited. I think they've done a lot of really good things, and just honest, I was getting to where I wasn't as excited to play Underworlds all the time. Because at the top tables, it was the same stuff, the same broken stuff, the same uninteractive, I can't stop you from doing it stuff. This game feels, and for anyone who's played Underworlds in the first game was all about scoring victory points. This version feels a lot more of, how do I stop you from scoring victory points? Which, in my opinion, makes it a much more interesting game.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions for Bryce about this game, because I'm not going to be able to answer any of those questions. If you have any questions about the game, put them in the comments below. If you've played it and you have any things that you want to say, for better, for worse, be honest in the in the comments and just let us know.
And until next time, we hope y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye.